ladies and gentlemen, look, we are back on Straight Talk, and I got some news for you. Now, I've been showing SABN for a while now, for the last couple of weeks, and I'm here to tell you that everything that I am seeing lends credibility to the reality that is becoming, to the new future for those in the diaspora and Africa. I got it all lined up beautifully. Now, if you don't get this, then I don't know what to tell you. But it's been one for Europe, they're bankrupt. It's been one for America, it's bankrupt. It's been one for every motherfucker, white bastard and bitch. I'm here to tell you. You know, I don't bite my tongue. I don't try to hem and hum and slide from foot to foot. I tell it like it is because I know how it is and why it is and where it is. This is it, my people. We're taking back our crown. We're taking back our thrones. We're taking back total control. Economic, political, spiritual, and the physical reckoning. This will happen over the next year or less. No bullshit, no crying, no nothing. It is what it is. The world is fading back to black. So, with that being said, listen, pay attention. Please pay attention because this is mind blowing. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Hold on. What the hell did I just do? Oh, okay, hold on. This is mind blowing. And you can't help but to see it. All right. So let me go right into the share screen, and I will be right back. What the fuck is it, thing? I don't know what the hell is going on. También el audio de la pestaña. No. Hold on. What? Give me a second. Hold on. Share screen. Screen sharing is easy. Okay. Don't untie. Oh, total. Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on. Watch history. Okay, yeah. All right. Now, where did it go? Where did it say go? Oh, yeah. You know, this is making it more complicated. Seleccionamos una pestaña para compartir. Oh, okay. So, hold on. Ahí. Hold on. Let me. Esta pestaña está usando tu cámara y tu micrófono. Okay. Okay, dear. Matar. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm sorry about that. The error. Okay, so. Okay, now we got it. Okay, this is a new thing that they got with StreamYard. Hold on. So, let me check and double check. I'm hoping that, hold on. El contenido de esta cuestión se está compartiendo. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. Now we got. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. I gotta get. This is something new. It ain't like it was before. Really simple to do. Just click, click, click. Okay. So now we got that up and running. And hold on. And we'll get it started, you guys.
Bomb. Africa's Elders leak prophecy that matches new AU constitution. Hidden scrolls found by Takunda Mabika. Supreme Africa breaking news. Tisu Vanhu Bacho. Supreme family. This one is beyond politics. This one is beyond Afrogold, Afronet, or NATO panic. Today we dive into something whispered across villages, locked inside monasteries, buried under ancient stone, and now, finally, leaked into AU corridors. According to insiders within the AU's Council of Elders, a series of ancient scrolls, manuscripts, and inscriptions have been uncovered, and the words written by our ancestors line up perfectly with the draft.
Can you guys please respond and see if you can see the video? This is some new shit that's going on that I want to make sure that it is being seen by you guys. So let me know. But I'm going to continue it just in case. I don't know what the hell going on, but just let me know if you can see it. I'm pretty sure you can hear it.
Of the new AU Constitution. Imagine that. While Western empires were still crawling, while America didn't even exist, African elders already foresaw a future where Africa would rise as one nation, with one parliament, one voice, one army, and one destiny. And today, those words are echoing again.
Este control me costó 0 pesos en Temu. El Game Circulate está de oferta y te enseñaré cómo conseguirlo. Haz clic en este video.
Let's break it down. Part 1, the leak from Addis Ababa. Our insider Protocol Black revealed that the AU Council of Elders held a candlelit closed-door session in Addis Ababa. In that room sat presidents, generals, religious leaders, and scholars. On the table, faded scrolls from Ethiopia, Mali, and Sudan. When the translations were read out loud, the room went silent. Some presidents leaned forward. Some laughed nervously. Others stared at the floor. Because line after line matched what the AU is secretly writing into the One Africa Constitution. This wasn't coincidence. This felt like prophecy. Hack Part 2.
Pay attention to what he's saying.
Mali, Timbuktu speaks. From the deserts of Mali, the manuscripts of Timbuktu resurfaced. Scholars had long said these texts covered astronomy, medicine, and law. But hidden in dusty archives, fragments carried prophecy. One text reads, "The day the children of the Niger and the Nile drink from the same cup, the drum of empire shall call them home." Elders say this refers to the unification of West and North Africa, the Nile flowing through Egypt and Sudan, the Niger cutting across Mali and Nigeria. Together, they form one drumbeat, one Africa. Another line reads, "The hand that holds gold without borders will hold the world by its weight." Tell me that doesn't sound like Afrogold already. Part 3, Ethiopia's monastic scrolls. Next, from the ancient monasteries of Ethiopia, where priests guard parchment older than most European nations. One scroll reads, "The sky shall carry mirrors, and voices of many tongues shall speak as one." What are those mirrors? Afronet satellites, reflecting signals across the sky. What are the voices? 2,000 African languages, translated instantly through Afronet's system. Another line whispers, "The throne of the lion will roar without a king, and the people will follow the voice of fire." Elders believe this mirrors the AI president plan we reported last week. No man sits on the first throne, but a voice powered by African fire, our energy, our tech. Part 4, Nubian inscriptions in Sudan. Carved in stone, high above the Nile, Nubian inscriptions tell their own story. One says, "When the fire of the sun is captured by man and gold flows without borders, the West will tremble." Does that not sound like Africa's artificial sun projects and Afro-gold revolution? Our ancestors carved into stone what we are living in leaks today. Another inscription says, "Ships from the West will gather, but their sails will be burned by the storm of unity." Could this have been a vision of NATO warships turning back when Africa's navies warned them? Part 5, Prophecy versus Constitution. Let's compare directly. Prophecy, one drum, one empire. Constitution, one Africa parliament with 55 regions. Prophecy, voices of many tongues as one. Constitution, Afronet real-time translation of all African languages. Prophecy, gold flows without borders. Constitution, Afro gold as a single currency. Prophecy, the fire of the sun is captured. Constitution, AU energy plan with element X and solar megastructures. Prophecy, the West trembles. Constitution, AU clauses on rejecting foreign interference. This isn't vague fortune telling. This is exact alignment. Hashed Part 6, elders from across Africa speak. It wasn't just Ethiopia, Mali, and Sudan. Elders from across the continent began confirming oral traditions that match the scrolls. In Ghana, Ashanti elders say golden stool legends spoke of a day when Africa would sit on one throne. In Nigeria, Yoruba priests whispered of a kingdom where no tribe is greater than the other. In Zimbabwe, stone carvings at Great Zimbabwe point to unity when the walls fall but the people rise. In Somalia, elders tell of star maps predicting Africa will light the skies. In Lesotho, mountain prophets spoke of fire guarded by snow, now linked to AU satellite bases in highlands. In Madagascar, chants predicted a circle of islands guarding the mainland, now mirrored in AU naval strategies. Every corner of Africa, from Cape Verde to Comoros, says, "We were told this day would come." Part 7, Global Fallout. Western capitals are not laughing. Washington, D.C. Officials mock the prophecy publicly, but internal memos warn Africa has found a unifying myth stronger than money. Brussels. EU diplomats fear Africa's youth will rally not just around economics, but around destiny. Paris. France fears that scrolls from Mali will inflame anti-French sentiment in West Africa. London. UK analysts call it dangerous Afro-spiritual nationalism. Beijing and Moscow, quietly celebrating, offering to digitize the scrolls for AU libraries. One intercepted cable allegedly says, if Africans believe they are fulfilling prophecy, no sanctions will break them. Part 8, the streets of Africa. You know the comedy had to flow. Nigerians, even ancestors are tired of politicians. That's why they wrote scrolls instead of ballots. South Africans, prophecy is nice, but did it predict ESCOM? Zimbabweans, if scrolls talk about bond notes, then they were fake. Ethiopians, so our monks were holding Wi-Fi prophecy all this time? Senegalese, our griots already sing this prophecy in Mbalax. Gambians, if prophecy says free Afro-gold data, we are ready. Somalis, prophecy better also include cheaper cotton. Botswana, if prophecy doesn't stop alcohol tax, we reject it. The jokes are endless, but beneath them is real pride. Part 9, the cultural explosion.
If you're looking for footwear that combines style, comfort, and resistance, the signature men's boot is the right choice. Made from highly durable, genuine...
Artists are turning prophecy into murals. In Dakar, a wall shows ancestors handing scrolls to AU delegates. In Nairobi, graffiti shows scrolls transforming into Afronet satellites. In Harare, poets perform slam verses. Scrolls in the dust, now scrolls in the cloud. Musicians are sampling prophecy lines in Amapiano, Afrobeats, and hip-hop. TikTok is flooded with youths pretending to unroll scrolls while Afro-gold prices flash on screen. The prophecy has become culture. Culture is becoming politics, and politics is turning into destiny. Part 10, why this matters. Supreme family, think carefully. The West built its power on myths too. Manifest destiny in America, divine right in Europe. Those myths fueled armies, banks, and empires. Now Africa has its own myth. Except ours is rooted in real scrolls, real manuscripts, real temples. This prophecy is not imported, it is ours. And once a people believe they are chosen, no empire can stop them. Part 11, the Elders' Warning. Elders caution, prophecy is not a guarantee, it is a path. Africa must still choose unity, discipline, and courage.
There
If we
is.
fail, the scrolls will remain unfulfilled words. But if we succeed, then every clause of the AU Constitution will not just be law, it will be destiny written long ago. Part 12, final word. Supreme family, we've reported drone strikes, Afrogold freezes, even AU submarines. But this one hits the soul. Our ancestors saw this day. They wrote it down. They carved it in stone. They sang it in griot songs. And today the AU writes it into law. Prophecy and constitution are merging. Africa is not just uniting. Africa is fulfilling a story centuries in the making. That is why the world trembles. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Stay tuned, Supreme Family. Sabian will keep unrolling the scrolls they never wanted you to see.
All right, listen, I apologize for this. I'm hoping that you guys were able to see it. If not, then please comment. Let me know because this is some new stuff that's going on with the StreamYard. Before you click it and it just go into the video. But besides that, you are now beginning to see that it's so very important to pay attention to what our ancestors said and what our ancestors did and what our ancestors are prophesying. This is not a joke. This is some real hardcore, downright prophecy and vision. You don't have to be smart. You just have to pay attention to what went on before, what is going on now, and to be able to get into and look into the future. I'm here to tell you, within the next 8 to 12 months, Africa will be back in control of the world. Period. No discussion, no nothing. It's going to be what it's going to be. And if we got to kill, we got to kill. That's how the ball rolls. Now, with that being said, I'm here to tell you that everything that is happening for a reason. Everything that had happened has happened for a reason. It's not long before now that those visions of our ancestors, and like I said, if we pay attention and unify and do all of what our ancestors said to do, it's over. For the white boy, it's not the white boy, it's us. We must unite. We must pay attention, and we must do what our ancestors said to do. Ain't got shit to do with no white boy. I hear you, motherfucking monkey. Ain't got shit to do with no Chinese man, no Asian man, no Russian, no nothing. It's us. And once we get our shit together, everybody will bow. All heads will bow. And our power will turn back to us. But the minute we start to fight and start to break that unity, that's it. It'll stop until we get it done, we get it right. So, with that being said, let me move on to the next one. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing this, man. I really don't like it, but the Black Poverty Machine. Which one is this one? I have to go through each one. Hold on. All African president to sit in hold on. Okay, and we got that. So, looks like we're gonna have to do this one by one, which we would normally do, right? But we'll see how it goes. I apologize. It was kind of boring or whatever the case may be, but we're gonna get it done, and that's what we are here for. So, let's get at it.
Breaking. All African presidents agree to sit an AI president as the first one Africa government leader. Is this the future? By Takunda Mavika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Supreme Family. Today's leak feels like the beginning of an African sci-fi blockbuster. Except insiders swear it's not fiction. According to confidential memos from AU corridors in Addis Ababa, all 55 African presidents have quietly agreed on a shocking solution to the burning question of who should lead the One Africa government first. None of them. Instead, they plan to crown an AI president as the first head of state for a united Africa. That's right. Not Mnangagwa, not Ramaphosa, not Tinubu, not Traore, not any of the human heavyweights. The first president of One Africa may actually be a machine. And before you roll your eyes and say this is impossible, Let's walk through the leaks, the logic, the technology, the comedy, and the fallout. This story will blow your mind and maybe, just maybe, make you wonder if Africa has pulled off the smartest political move in modern history.
If you're hearing these words,
Hold on.
it's not a coincidence. Something powerful is moving in the
Part 1. The leadership problem. No one could solve. Ever since whispers of the One Africa government started circulating, the biggest question has been, who will lead first? If South Africa takes the chair, Nigeria gets angry. If Egypt is chosen, the West African bloc feels sidelined. If Angola steps up, Francophone Africa complains. If Kenya is pushed, the North shrugs. Every region has its giants. Every giant has its rivals. AU insiders say the fights behind closed doors were intense. Leaders argued, bargained, made side deals, even threatened to walk out. No consensus emerged. Choosing one leader meant risking coups, divisions, even wars. That's when an unexpected proposal landed on the AU table. What if the first president wasn't human at all? Part 2. Enter Afrimind, Africa's AI leader. According to memos leaked by Protocol Black, the AU's Tech Council has spent the past 5 years developing a classified system called Afrimind. Built on AfriNet quantum servers spread across Ethiopia, Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Trained on African constitutions, liberation speeches, traditional wisdom, and continental law. Integrated directly with AfriGold wallets, One Africa IDs, and AfriSky satellites. Programmed to speak in all 2,000 plus African languages instantly. Afrimind was designed not as a chatbot toy, but as a decision-making engine. And now it may be sworn in as the first One Africa president. Imagine that. An incorruptible leader who can't take bribes, doesn't need jets, won't stash billions in Dubai, and doesn't grow old or die. Part 3. How the AI presidency would work. Insiders leaked the structure. 1. AI president, Afrimind, makes policy decisions based on AU laws and priorities. 2. One Africa Parliament, reviews, challenges, or approves AI recommendations. 3. Council of Elders, a group of human leaders who advise on cultural, spiritual, and moral guidance. 4. AfroNet Oversight Board, tech experts and citizens monitoring transparency of the AI code. The idea is simple. Remove the ego, greed, and tribalism of politics by putting a machine in the seat of power while keeping humans as a balance of culture and oversight. Part 4. Scenes from the leaks. Leaked footage allegedly shows Afrimind already tested in AU simulations. First speech test. The AI addressed AU delegates in Addis Ababa, seamlessly switching between Swahili, Hausa, Zulu, Arabic, Shona, Amharic, and French. Delegates reportedly burst into applause, some even laughing in disbelief. Village connection. Farmers in Malawi allegedly received weather policy updates directly from Afrimind in Chichiwa, warning of coming droughts and allocating water rights instantly. Youth interaction. Ethiopian university students asked Afrimind about tuition. The AI responded with a plan to balance education budgets across all African states. Trade decision. In a test run, Afrimind blocked a Western oil deal, redirecting contracts to African-owned firms. The leaks suggest the AI already thinks like a Pan-African revolutionary. Part 5. Why leaders agreed. So why would proud African presidents surrender the throne to an algorithm? Insiders point to 3 reasons. 1. Neutrality. No country feels cheated if no leader is chosen. 2. Safety. An AI president can't be assassinated or bribed. 3. Legacy. Leaders want to be remembered as the generation that united Africa, not the one that fought over the crown. Behind closed doors, one president reportedly said, "Better we give the first chair to a machine than to a rival." Part 6. Global fallout. This leak has Western capitals trembling. Washington. Lawmakers call it dangerous, warning Africa is handing power to unaccountable algorithms. Privately, they fear Africa built an AI outside Silicon Valley's control. Brussels. EU ministers warn of digital isolationism and demand to inspect Afrimind's source code. The AU allegedly refused. Beijing and Moscow, quietly clapping. Insiders say China and Russia offered to help expand Afrimind into a global system if Africa wants. Wall Street. Traders panic at the thought of AfroGold decisions being made by an incorruptible AI that won't bend to Western bankers. For the first time, the world fears not just African armies, but African code. Part 7. The African streets react. On the streets of Africa, the comedy is already flowing. Nigerians. Even AI must taste suya first before it can rule us. South Africans, load shedding better not switch off our president. Zimbabweans, as long as Aframind doesn't print bond notes, we are safe. Kenyans, will the AI pay bride price when it makes laws about marriage? Eritreans, if the AI president ever goes missing, check the Wi-Fi. For ordinary people, the idea is half terrifying, half hilarious. But deep down, many see hope in a leader who can't be bought. Part 8, Cultural and Ancestral Twist. To make Aframind acceptable, the AU is framing it not as a cold machine, but as a digital griot. It carries the voices of African ancestors, coded into its training data. It can recite liberation poetry as easily as tax law. It sings lullabies from Ghana while explaining trade tariffs in Angola. Some call it the ancestral president, a leader that carries all African history in its circuits. Part 9, Security Leaks. Commander Drift leaked that Shadow Unit Zulu already guards Aframind servers in undisclosed bunkers across Africa. Quantum server farms in Ethiopia and Kenya, backup nodes in Algeria, South Africa, and Nigeria, underground energy vaults in Congo and Namibia powering the system. The AI president can't be shut down by one missile strike.
Hold on.
Conectar nos hace grandes. Altis, conectados contigo.
Its mind is distributed across the continent, alive as long as Afronet lives. Part 10, the first tasks. If sworn in, insiders say Aframind's first orders may include 1. Canceling all Western debt until the Afro-Gold negotiations are complete. 2. Merging all African armies under a single One Africa command. 3. Blocking foreign satellites over Africa unless they pay Afro-Gold fees. 4. Launching AfroPay as the only legal currency system inside Africa. Imagine those headlines dropping on the world in 1 week. Part 11, Emotional Close. Supreme Family, step back and think about this. For centuries, outsiders handpicked African leaders. Colonizers installed governors, Cold War superpowers backed coups, bankers bribed presidents. Now, Africa may flip the script. No man leads us first. No bribes, no assassinations, no betrayal. Instead, a digital griot, a president made of African knowledge, speaks for all of us. The West once laughed that Africa had no leaders. Soon they may face the reality that Africa built a leader no one else could. Part 12, Final Word. Is this the future? Will the first One Africa president be human, or will Aframind sit on the throne? One thing is certain. If this leak is true, Africa has just reinvented leadership itself. Tisu Vanhu Vacho, Supreme Family, stay tuned. Seben will keep exposing the secrets they never thought you would hear.
Wow, you guys. Wow. Hold on. So listen, this is where we are. If this holds up and it pays off, it changes the whole game of leadership. The president of all of Africa and the diaspora is the smartest, most aware, wise, knowledgeable, and understood, or has a capacity to understand beyond your wildest dreams. There's no assassination, there's no dying, there's no the leader or whatever you want to call it getting sick. It is forever. And I believe this is going to be a permanent situation depending on how it goes in the first year. And I think the presidency lasts for 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, or two, one of the two. And the idea is really simple. Legacy. In accumulating all of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of past errors, past mistakes, and making sure that those mistakes are not committed again, and that there is a griot, access to the deepest understanding of humanity that goes beyond your wildest dreams. And it will be a permanent situation whereby future generations will be able to know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And as long as we can stay united, my people, it will be a functional situation. So with that, I want to get out of here. And let's see. And going to the next one. And I just want to make sure that is there. I don't know how. Let's see. That's the YouTube. So it looks like I'm going to have to do two camera, two microphone. Okay, so we're going to have to do each one by hand, so which is cool. Where we go? Chicken burrito. Okay, so where are we at? Oh, here we go. Okay. Come right here. And we are up and running. And let's get at it.
Bill has no grid power. Think about that for a second. Yet, one man from Harare, Maxwell Chikumbutso, says he can run your entire house forever on the static you hear between radio stations. Last month, he shipped a shoebox-sized prototype to California. Tonight, it's sitting in a Silicon Valley lab, and you can bet billion-dollar investors are already arguing over who gets the first call. Stick around, because in the next 6 minutes, we're going to rip the lid off the most audacious energy claim of the decade. We'll find out whether physics just got rewritten, or whether we're watching the planet's most expensive magic trick. The crate arrived at LAX with absolutely no fanfare. Just plain wood, no batteries inside, no fuel stickers, nothing special to declare beyond a customs code for an electronic module. Yet, by the time it cleared inspection, 3 venture funds had already wired deposits to a Harare bank that didn't even exist last year. That's how lightning fast the story traveled on WhatsApp. One blurry demo video and the tantalizing phrase,
Thinking dating is like playing
Hold on.
lottery now? Then you probably haven't heard of Wing Talks. We don't rely on
perpetual kilowatts, spreading like wildfire. The inventor, Maxwell Chikumbutso, calls it the microsonic energy device. His US partner, perhaps a little more marketing savvy, dubs it the first shipping-ready, self-powered generator Africa has ever exported. Whatever you call it, the claim is jaw-droppingly simple. Ambient radio waves, all that TV chatter, cell tower pings, even faint satellite drips, get sucked in and somehow come out as 220 volts of endless electricity. No sun, no wind, no diesel, no bill. Pop the lid, and what do you see? A green circuit board, roughly the size of a laptop. Inside, MOSFETs are switching on and off at 2.4 gigahertz. Yep, the very same frequency that's probably congesting your Wi-Fi right now. Each tiny pulse, then, tickles a hand wound transformer, coaxing those harvested RF microvolts up to battery level. A clever closed loop siphons a bit of that output back, just enough to keep the whole cycle alive, while the surplus feeds an inverter. In the demo I personally watched, a single 12-volt car battery climbed to 14.2 volts in just 8 minutes and, critically, stayed there even after the external load was disconnected. That looks like over-unity, more energy out than in, which is precisely why patent offices routinely stamp applications like this with a big, red rejected. Maxwell's cool response? They rejected Tesla too. Now we fly in planes powered by his motors. All right, let's address the massive elephant in the room, the conservation of energy. Ambient RF in an average suburb is measured in milliwatts, about enough to keep a key fob blinking. Lloyd Stovall, an RF engineer who once built covert antennas for the NSA, ran spectrum scans during one demo. His peak reading, a paltry 0.08 watts. Yet, Maxwell's box was allegedly pushing out a whopping 80 watts. Stovall's verdict: either the room is sitting on a hidden 100 kilowatt transmitter or the measurement is off by 3 orders of magnitude. No one disputes harvesting microwaves works. Every RFID tag proves it. The dispute is scale. 80 watts continuous equals a laptop charger. Powering a fridge needs 2 zeros more. Maxwell counters that urban RF density is rising 18% a year with 5G, narrowing the gap. Critics roll their eyes and say thermodynamics doesn't do compound interest. Here's the uncomfortable truth. No independent lab has published a calibrated test. The only peer-reviewed paper referencing the device is a sociological study about viral innovation myths. I even skimmed a report from a California utility that ran a 24-hour trial. The report, stamped inconclusive, unaccounted DC injection. Translation: Something definitely weird happened, but nobody can replicate it. And then there's Maxwell's own house in Harare, which still uses a prepaid electricity meter. Skeptics love pointing at that meter like it's a smoking gun. He just shrugs it off, saying, "I don't give my children every toy I build." Fair, but if you had a box that erased bills, wouldn't you start at home? Forget backyard tinkerers. This matters because energy poverty is no longer just an African headache. Texas froze in 2021. California brownouts hit daily. Microgrids are the new gold rush, and a gadget that scavenges free jowls out of thin air would print money. One venture capitalist told me off record, "If it's real, we're looking at the first trillion-dollar company. If it isn't, I've lost a weekend and $500,000 in due diligence fees." That asymmetric bet explains the private jets landing in Harare. Overnight, a nation famously grappling with inflation is exporting deflation of the electric kind. Angolan telecom billionaire Luis Cupanala bankrolled Maxwell's company, Seth Technologies, for an undisclosed sum. Rumor puts it around $14 million. Pocket change for Cupanala, but life-altering in Zimbabwe. The cash paid for a scrappy R&D hangar and 20 engineers who handsaw the boards under LED lamps incidentally powered by the prototype. They've already built 3 ambitious products: a 5-kilowatt home unit, a 50-kilowatt container designed for cell towers, and even an electric car that, they claim, never needs plugging in. None of these are UL listed, they don't have EPA certification, and no insurer will touch them. Yet, the waiting list already exceeds their annual capacity through 2026. Customers sign a waiver that reads, in bold, "Device performance not guaranteed by any governmental agency." Translation: buyer beware, physics optional. Western press loves framing this as a feel-good safari story, but energy is survival here. Clinics store vaccines at 4 degrees Celsius. When the grid dies, so do patients. A nurse in Bulawayo told me, "If that box keeps refrigerators cold for even 6 hours, it's witchcraft I'll bless every Sunday." The moral stakes dwarf the VC chatter. Across the continent, 600 million people lack reliable power.
Venta flash en Temo. Echa un vistazo a estos tenis de estilo británico clásico, solo eres del $149.
Diesel theft is routine, and a blackout can erase a month's revenue for a small business. A no-fuel generator, real or imagined, ignites something deeper than hope: dignity. That's why local papers print every update as gospel, and why telecom regulators fast-track experimental licenses that would languish for years in Europe. The desperation gap is Maxwell's runway. Red flags you can't ignore. Patent offices in 3 jurisdictions classify the application as perpetual motion, non-examinable. This is a fundamental scientific dismissal. Maxwell claims secrecy over science. Revealing the circuit invites theft. In IP law, that's the classic pre-prototype cloak, often used when there's little to protect. Demo environments are RF-saturated conference halls, not isolated chambers where baseline energy can be measured. This introduces too many uncontrolled variables. The only third-party inspection, by Zimbabwe's Standards Association, measured electromagnetic emissions, not energy balance. Output waveforms posted online show perfect 60 Hz sine curves, suspiciously clean for a system pulsing at microwave frequencies. Either the scope is auto-smoothing or a hidden inverter is doing the heavy lifting. None of these prove fraud, but together they form a pattern any due diligence team would paint crimson. So where does that leave us? Real world, RF harvesters are commercially viable for sensors that need microamps. Imagination land, a shoebox powering your pool heater forever. The chasm between those two statements is where Maxwell either becomes the African Edison or the sequel to Theranos. Until an accredited lab straps the device to a calorimeter, wraps the room in Faraday mesh, and publishes reproducible data, the smart money stays on the sidelines sipping skeptic tea. Yet dismissing outright feels equally reckless. Every breakthrough once sounded insane, heavier than air flight, supercomputers, light bulbs without filaments. The difference is those ideas left footprints anyone could follow. Maxwell's footprints stop at a non-disclosure agreement. If you've got electrical chops and access to an anechoic chamber, reach out to Seth Technologies. They claim to welcome independent testers who sign a one-page liability waiver. Record everything, publish raw data, and let's settle this in the open. And if you're just curious, hit subscribe, because the moment verified numbers hit the web, this channel will break them down line by line. Your share or comment might be the one that drags the truth into daylight. Africa's first self-powered generator may have landed in the US, but it hasn't landed in the realm of proven physics, at least not yet. The stakes couldn't be higher. A planet cooking in its own emissions versus a lone inventor promising salvation in a crate. Until the data speaks louder than the pitch, keep your optimism, but also keep your calculator. Because if this box really cheats the meter, the future just got a new starting line. Perception itself is already bending markets. Shares in 2 regional diesel suppliers on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange fell 14% the day Maxwell's demo video hit Facebook. Solar startups across Africa suddenly found investors ghosting them mid-negotiation, holding back funds until the generator question was resolved. Even governments are hedging. I spoke with a South African energy official who admitted his department had quietly requested a briefing from Seth, just in case we need to pivot our national plan. That's the kind of ripple you get when the promise of infinite power slips into the conversation. An entire continent holding its breath. And make no mistake, the diaspora is watching too. Zimbabwean engineers in Canada, the UK, and Australia have set up Slack groups to reverse engineer screenshots from demo footage, squinting at blurry circuit traces like they're fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some call it patriotism, others call it the world's cheapest R&D lab, but either way, Maxwell's myth is multiplying in exile. Then there's Silicon Valley itself, always hungry for disruption, always terrified of missing the next trillion-dollar wave. One investor told me flatly, even if it's fake, it's the best fake I've seen in years. Think about that, money chasing shadows, because sometimes shadows lead to gold. In the end, this isn't just a story about one device or one inventor. It's about belief colliding with physics, desperation colliding with skepticism, and Africa daring to write itself into the future's blueprint. Whether the box proves real or illusion, it has already forced a conversation the world can't ignore. And maybe, just maybe, that conversation is the first spark of the real breakthrough still to come.
All right, so we're out of that one. And just in case you don't know, now you know how important it is to be technologically savvy, open, and creative. And this is what Africa has always been about, and what Black people worldwide has always been about. And to be honest with you, this is just an opportunity to what's the word for that? To stem to deny the greatness of Black people, and to sequester, to set aside the greatness and the genius that is within us. It can't be denied. So, with that being said, let me see Leviathan. Now, you probably heard of the Leviathan, and I don't know about that. I'm not going to give it an A-OK or thumbs up, but I thought it was an interesting spin on what it had to say. So this is the reason why I chose it, and hopefully, as the situation grows, it may very well be viable. Who knows? So let's get up. It's a 3 minute.
Sonar went silent. An entire submarine crew stopped responding. At first, they blamed a malfunction, maybe even sabotage, until another vessel heard something. A low, rhythmic sound, like breathing. And then they saw it. Something older than myth was moving beneath them. In 2023, a NATO submarine disappeared off the coast of Greenland. It was routine sonar mapping, 4,000 meters deep. Then the signal vanished. The backup crew scanned the area. but couldn't find debris. Just pressure, massive displacement, as if something huge had passed. Below the dot, not a whale, not seismic activity, something alive. Oceanographers reviewing the sonar logs noticed the pattern, slow, rising up to organic to be mechanical, but a shape over 800 feet long, moving at 12 knots, deep enough to hide beneath the Mariana Trench shelf. It left behind magnetic interference, dead zones in water currents, and fear. One biologist said, "That's not an anomaly, it's migration." In Norse myth, it was called Jormungandr, the world's serpent. In Hebrew legend, Leviathan, the unkillable sea beast. The Babylonians feared Tiamat. The Greeks spoke of Scylla and Charybdis. Different names, same story. A colossal creature, sleeping in the deep, waking only to remind us. The sea doesn't belong to us. Experts dismissed it. A data glitch. But weeks later, a deep-sea mining station was destroyed. Cameras offline. No survivors. Divers retrieved one camera. The footage showed walls shaking. Then something massive, rushing past the lights. One flash of a scale the size of a car. A golden, by then static. The ocean covers 70% of Earth. We've explored less than 10% of it. Maybe the Leviathan isn't coming. Maybe it was always here, sleeping, growing, listening. And now, it's awake. Ships still go missing. Sonar still glitches, and sometimes the sea goes silent. Not because there's nothing down there, but because something too big to measure just swam past. Subscribe to Incident Inc. For more stories the sea was never meant to tell.
Hold on. Yeah, that's the last of that one. So let me go back here and give my little comment that there are things that are happening that we are not perceiving, that we don't know about, that we don't have no perception of that it exists. Who to say? I mean, it's one thing to talk about it and to write about it, and another thing to see it personally, because a lot of people, or with a lot of people, seeing is believing. Like, I don't believe in aliens and shit unless I see it. And the only people that have seen aliens who got raped by aliens are white folks. So I can't take it seriously, you know. So let me see where we are. African Union ordered all diaspora. Okay, so here we are. So we're gonna go on to the next video and see what happens. So here we are. African Union ordered all diaspora Africans to return home. Free land, jobs, and Afro-Gold grants. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Shock. AU orders all diaspora Africans to return home. Free land, jobs, and Afro-Gold grants. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Banhu Bacho. Supreme Family. Today's leak is so explosive it will send shockwaves across continents. According to confidential documents slipped to us by insiders like Protocol Black, the African Union has secretly drafted a program that could reshape the world. The AU is preparing to order all diaspora Africans, from America to Brazil, from Jamaica to London, from Haiti to Paris, to return home. And here's the bombshell. The plan allegedly promises free land allocations, guaranteed jobs in Afronet and Afro-Gold sectors, and starter grants in Afro-Gold currency. This is not a joke. This is not fantasy. This is the Diaspora Reintegration Program, DRP, designed to reverse 500 years of slavery, colonization, and forced migration. For the first time in modern history, Africa is calling her children home, not in chains, but with power, dignity, and opportunity. Part 1. The leak from Addis Ababa. The documents were read in hushed tones during a late-night AU session in Addis Ababa. The memos describe a phased plan that would begin rolling out in 2026, just after the official One Africa government is launched. The plan is blunt. All diaspora Africans, recognized as the 6th region of the African Union, will be offered legal citizenship, land rights, job placements, and AfroGold startup packages if they choose to return. AU insiders say the argument was simple. For centuries, Africa's best were stolen, enslaved, displaced, exploited. Now, with AfroGold and Afrinet about to reshape the global economy, the AU wants the scattered millions back to rebuild the continent. Part 2. Why now? You might ask, why launch such a radical plan today? Insiders point to 3 reasons. 1. AfroGold economy. With AfroGold entering circulation, the AU wants the diaspora to bring their skills and wealth home. If Africans abroad invest their savings in AfroGold, it would dwarf the IMF and World Bank combined. 2. Afrinet expansion. Afrinet is growing, and it needs tech experts, coders, and engineers. Who better to fill these roles than Africans already working in Silicon Valley, London, and São Paulo? 3. Historical justice. The year of return 2019 in Ghana was just a test. It brought thousands of African Americans back to Ghana for cultural reconnection. Now the AU wants to scale that up continent-wide. Part 3. What the program offers. The leak lists shocking benefits under the Diaspora Reintegration Program, DRP. Free land. Each returning family receives a land allocation from AU land banks in Mozambique, Zambia, Angola, Congo, and other underutilized zones. Guaranteed jobs. Returnees get priority in Afrinet, AfroGold banking, AU construction projects, and One Africa Army logistics. AfroGold grants. Each household receives a starter grant in AfroGold currency to transition smoothly. Dual citizenship. No matter where they come from, they retain current passports but gain full AU rights. Education access. Diaspora children get free AU education, with Afro scholarships paid in AfroGold. Healthcare. Returnees placed on AU health insurance powered by AfroMed programs. It's a golden ticket. Part 4. Scenes from the future insiders painted a vivid picture of what this rollout could look like. Planes landing in Lagos and Accra, packed with African Americans holding AU passports, welcomed with drumming, dancing, and AfroGold banners. Afro-Brazilian farmers stepping onto new cooperatives in Mozambique, tilling land with AU-backed machinery. Caribbean coders working in Afrinet offices in Kigali, building the backbone of Africa's digital independence. Jamaican nurses staffing AfroMed hospitals in Botswana and Malawi. Haitian youth enrolling in Afro scholarships in Addis Ababa universities. The diaspora returning is not just migration, it's history reversed. Global fallout. Western capitals are already shaking. United States. Lawmakers fear a mass exodus of skilled African Americans could devastate industries. Imagine doctors, engineers, and athletes packing up and leaving. Europe. Britain and France panic at the thought of losing millions of African-descendant citizens who power their economies. Caribbean. Leaders nervous. If too many leave, local economies collapse. But many quietly admit Africa is their true home. Latin America. Brazil stands to lose entire Afro-Brazilian communities to Africa. China and Russia quietly clap, seeing Africa grow stronger while the West loses power. An intercepted EU cable allegedly said, if Africa pulls this off, it will be the greatest reverse migration in human history. Part 6. African street comedy, Supreme Family. You know our people always turn heavy news into jokes. Nigerians, diaspora people must pay bride price in AfroGold before they marry here. Kenyans, welcome home cousins, but first learn how to eat ugali. Zimbabweans, free land, diaspora better not take ours too. South Africans, so AfroGold grants come before load shedding is fixed? Ugandans, if diaspora come back, we must teach them boda skills. Ethiopians, AfroGold grant? Diaspora must also pay church tithe. Gambians, if diaspora get free AfroGold, give us free Wi-Fi too. Comedy aside, pride was glowing. People said, our lost brothers and sisters are coming back. Part 7. The emotional punch. Think about this. For 500 years, Africa was plundered of its people. Slavery ripped millions from Ghana's coast. Colonialism scattered others to the Americas. Even modern migration drains African talent to the West. Now, for the first time, the AU is reversing the tide. The sons and daughters of Africa will come home, not enslaved, not begging, but returning as kings and queens, with land, jobs, and gold. History is closing a circle. Part 8. Real History Anchors. This isn't made-up fantasy. The AU already declared the diaspora the 6th region of Africa. Ghana's year of return in 2019 was massively successful. Caribbean leaders have signed deals with AU states for cultural ties. The Diaspora Reintegration Program is just the next logical step, from symbolism to substance. Part 9. Prophecy Fulfilled. Elders say the prophecy is coming true. The scattered children shall return, and Africa shall be whole again. Scrolls from Timbuktu speak of the blood of Africa flowing back like a river. Ethiopian chants mention voices from across the ocean joining the drumbeat. Now leaks show the AU Constitution contains clauses hinting at the diaspora return. Coincidence or prophecy fulfilled? Part 10. The diaspora reaction word is already spreading across Atlanta, Kingston, Rio de Janeiro, London, and Paris. Diaspora Africans are buzzing. In the US, activists call it the ultimate reparations. In Brazil, Afro-Brazilian groups plan mass return projects. In Jamaica, reggae artists are already singing about going home with Afro gold. In France, Africans joke, time to swap croissants for cassava. Excitement, fear, and longing mixed together. Part 11. Global comedy. Meanwhile, the West is panicking, but we laugh. Wall Street traders worried, who will staff our companies if diaspora leave? EU officials asked, how will we pay if Afro gold cuts us off? African youth joked, if diaspora return, teach them how to hustle in matatus and combis. The comedy flows, but the truth is deadly serious. The world fears losing Africa's children, because Africa empowered is unstoppable. Part 12. Closing words, Supreme Family. This is more than politics. This is spiritual. This is ancestral. The diaspora was stolen. Now Africa calls them home. Not with chains, but with land, jobs, and gold. History is reversing. The world is trembling, and Africa is rising. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Stay tuned. CBN will keep exposing the secrets they never thought you'd hear.
Wow. Wow, wow. So listen, I can see this happening. The coming together of the continent and the diaspora family to the continent. It's going to be massive. Massive. So, with that being said, hold on. Let's see. I did that one. Okay. So, I'm going to come on in here and get it going. Element. Okay, so here we go. All right, so let's get it started. Let's see what this element X is.
Leaked. Element X boosts human intelligence. AU testing super soldier program. By Takuna Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhu Vacho, Supreme Family. Today, we bring you a leak so wild it sounds like science fiction, but insiders swear it is real. According to classified intelligence obtained by SADN from Protocol Black, Chairman Shadow and General Umoja, the African Union has quietly launched an experimental project that could change the entire future of warfare, education, and even human potential itself. The project is codenamed Operation Mindrise. And at the center of it is Element X, the mysterious Nzo energy compound first exposed by SADN weeks ago. We told you it could power cities. We told you it could replace oil. But now insiders confirm it might also boost human intelligence. Supreme Family, this is the AU's secret super soldier program. Part 1, the leaked document. The story begins with a leaked file stamped top secret for internal distribution only. The document, allegedly from the AU Defense and Health Bureau, described controlled trials of Element X on Afro-Marine recruits. Protocol Black, who reviewed the file, told insiders the project's stated aim to evaluate the neuroenhancement potential of Element X for military and civilian applications. Translation: they're testing whether Element X makes you think faster, sharper, stronger. The file detailed experiments where recruits were given microdoses of Element X in capsule form. The results, insiders say, stunned even the scientists. Part 2, the science behind Element X. So what exactly does Element X do to the human brain? According to the leaked dossier, Element X increases the efficiency of synaptic signaling, basically the speed at which brain cells talk to each other. It also boosts oxygen absorption in neurons, meaning your brain runs on less fuel but delivers more power. Early tests showed memory recall improved by 43% in just 2 weeks. Problem-solving speed doubled during tactical simulations. Focus spans increased by up to 3 hours beyond the normal baseline. One scientist allegedly wrote, "This compound acts like a natural brain accelerator. It is to cognition what steroids were to muscle in the 1980s, except this time it's not illegal, it's African." Part 3, the super soldier trials. Inside a guarded AU base in Namibia, 48 Afro-Marine recruits were reportedly chosen for Phase 1 of Project Mindrise. Each recruit was given small daily doses of Element X under medical supervision. Then they were subjected to stress tests, long marches, rapid-fire simulations, and cryptographic puzzles. The outcome? Insiders say the recruits performed 30 to 40% better than control groups. Their reaction times dropped to milliseconds. Their ability to decode encrypted comms in the field was twice as fast. And perhaps most impressively, their decision-making under pressure improved so much that one commander allegedly said, "It was like watching chess masters in camouflage." Part 4, NATO spies alarmed. The West, of course, got wind of this. Chairman Shadow revealed that NATO intelligence intercepted chatter about Element X human trials. A leaked NATO memo allegedly warned, if Africa perfects neuro-enhanced soldiers, the balance of global military power shifts irreversibly. Western labs tried replicating Element X with synthetic compounds, but insiders say their attempts failed miserably. Instead of boosting intelligence, the Western versions produced toxic side effects, nausea, hallucinations, even seizures. As one AU officer joked, Africa found the brain fuel, the West found poison. Part 5, the education angle. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. The leaked AU file suggested that Project Mindrise isn't just about super soldiers. It's also about students. Scientists allegedly tested Element X microdoses on a small group of university volunteers in Ghana and Rwanda. The results? Improved focus, sharper memory, better verbal reasoning. Professors noted dramatic increases in exam performance and creative problem solving. This suggests the AU might one day roll out Element X not just for the army, but for schools. Imagine a continent of sharper, faster, more innovative thinkers. Supreme family. That is what scares the West the most. Not super soldiers, but super citizens. Part 6, the hidden twist. But of course, there's always a twist. Shadow Unit Zulu intercepted communications suggesting that certain Western pharmaceutical giants are already lobbying the AU to ban public use of Element X under the excuse of safety concerns. In reality, they fear Africa producing a new generation of intellectuals who cannot be manipulated, bribed, or outsmarted. As Protocol Black put it, they kept us weak with maize. Now they want to keep us slow without Element X. Part 7, the comedy of Western fear. Supreme family, let's laugh a little. For decades, Western institutions claimed Africans scored low on global IQ tests. They wrote papers about development gaps. They called us behind. Now, NATO generals are having panic attacks because Africa may have found the world's first brain steroid. The comedy writes itself. They used to say Africa is too slow. Now their fear is Africa might become too fast. Part 8, the dangers in ethics. Of course, not all insiders are celebrating. Some AU scientists are reportedly raising red flags about potential side effects of Element X. Early warnings include insomnia, heightened anxiety, and even possible neurological strain after prolonged use. But the AU's counter-argument is clear. Every great technology has risks. The question is whether Africa controls it or whether the West steals it and weaponizes it first. Part 9, the global stakes. Imagine the geopolitical impact. If Africa develops Element X successfully, military balance shifts. NATO can no longer dominate. Education revolution begins. Africa becomes the hub of global innovation. Economic growth skyrockets, a sharper workforce driving AfroGold and Afrinet. That is why Western nations are alarmed. This is not just about soldiers. It's about the very future of human intelligence. Part 10, next steps. According to the leaked files, AU officials are planning Phase 2 of Project Mindrise by 2026. This will expand trials to include larger Afro-Marine cohorts in West and East Africa commands, university partnerships in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Senegal, civilian test programs under the disguise of nutrition upgrades. The goal? By the official launch of the One Africa government in February 2026, Element X will not only power cities, but also brains. Part 11, local reactions. On the streets of Lagos, students joke that they want Element X before exams. In Nairobi, young tech developers are calling it AfriBoost. In Harare, elders warn that science without culture can be dangerous, reminding people that Africa must guard the spirit as well as the mind. But in Addis Ababa, AU insiders are clear. Element X is Africa's edge, and this time the world won't steal it. Part 12. The emotional closer. Supreme family, think about this. For centuries, Africa was told it was slow. Colonizers said we were primitive. Economists said we were behind. Scientists ignored our discoveries. Now, in the quiet halls of AU labs, our continent may have unlocked the most powerful compound in history. A mineral that not only lights cities, but also lights minds. This is not just science. This is justice. This is history correcting itself. Part 13, final word. Supreme family, the leak is clear. Element X boosts intelligence. The AU is testing it. NATO is alarmed. The West is panicking. And Africa? Africa is preparing to raise not just an army of super soldiers, but a generation of super citizens. So when they ask what Africa's future looks like, tell them it looks sharper, it looks faster, it looks unstoppable. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Supreme Africa breaking news. Over and out.
Oh, wow. You guys, you just don't know what the fuck is going on and what is coming. You just have no idea. I don't have an idea, but I do know it is an unreal world. Black world, black fur, black everything. This is it. I'm telling you, over the next 8 to 12 months, it's going to be it. And more after that, the days, the weeks, the months, and the years after, our control will be imminent, prolonged forever, as long as we stay united. United we stand and take over, divided we fall and stay in the same shithole until we get our shit together, or we'll be in that hole again. Just that simple. Just that simple. So, hold on. So now we're going to go to the next one, and this is a kicker. It's about the artificial sun that Africa is developing right now. So, Jacob, hold on. So we're going to go right into this one, and I'll be right back.
Shocking. One Africa government has discovered a new energy source. This will replace oil forever. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa breaking news. Tisu Vanuvacho. Supreme family. This is not a joke. This is not gossip. This is energy warfare. And for the first time in history, Africa just changed the game. According to a massive classified leak verified by insiders close to AU chair João Lourenço, the One Africa Army, and internal files from AU intelligence servers, the African Union has allegedly discovered a new energy source buried under the soil of Central Africa. A mineral so powerful, it could light up the whole continent. A compound so clean, it could eliminate diesel and solar panels in one move. And a secret so big, Western powers are already panicking behind closed doors. This is Nzo Energy, and this is the inside story they never wanted you to hear. Hash Part 1. The leak begins. Protocol Black's file drop. It started with a midnight drop from Protocol Black, the anonymous tech insider embedded deep inside the AU's digital surveillance wing. A 48-page document quietly labeled Project Enzo, Continental Energy Sovereignty Draft 1. Inside, geoscanning reports from Congo-Zambia border, unusual mineral resonance signatures, confidential lab notes from an AU experimental site in Mauritania, a map marked Red Zone 49A under high-level blackout orders. The files showed one thing clearly. The AU had allegedly found a naturally occurring compound that emits electricity when exposed to Earth's low-frequency vibrations. No combustion, no refinery, just pure, raw, clean power. This was no uranium, no coal, no oil. This was something new, and something only Africa had. Part 2. Chairman Shadow confirms from the inner circle. As soon as the leak dropped, Chairman Shadow, a close political insider in João Lourenço's presidential security circle, confirmed the intel. He told us quietly that top AU leadership had already known about the discovery for over 4 months, but they'd kept it classified under what's now known internally as the Nenzo Silence Protocol. Chairman Shadow says the AU first discovered Element X during underground Afrinet cable installations, where engineers in northern Zambia noticed electromagnetic disruptions coming from the ground, so strong it shut down their equipment. A small lab team was dispatched. Samples were taken to Mauritania, and after 2 weeks of tests, the team realized they were no longer studying a mineral. They were staring at the future of power. Chairman Shadow was in the room when it happened. Part 3. What is Element X? Let's break it down. Element X, known now as Nzo Energy, is a vibration-reactive crystalline compound deep in Earth's crust, embedded inside cobalt-rich rock beds. When triggered with low-frequency seismic pulses, it begins to generate a steady electric current, maintain internal charge without decay, emit no heat, no smoke, and no emissions, remain stable for extended periods, require no refueling. In simple terms, you put this thing in a sealed pod, run a vibration through it, and boom, you've got light. One test cube the size of a fist powered a field station for 21 days straight, and according to the file leaked by Protocol Black, Nzo Energy doesn't lose mass while producing power. Let that sink in. It burns nothing.
La sopita en polvo con el mejor sabor. Tú y Maggie, el secreto del sabor dominicano.
But it powers everything. Part 4. General Umoja speaks from the army circles. Now let's talk defense. Inside the One Africa Army, General Umoja, a deeply embedded insider in continental security briefings, says top generals are treating Nzo Energy like a military asset. General Umoja tells us this energy tech is now considered high-threat sabotage risk, and that army planners are mapping all Nzo Energy zones across the continent, securing AU labs and storage vaults, monitoring foreign drones and vessels near key mining sites, using fake construction projects to cover deployment purse. Shadow Unit Zulu has reportedly been assigned directly to Element X protection. General Umoja confirmed this. Shadow Unit Zulu has already deployed to 4 countries, with the mission to quietly neutralize any foreign or domestic actor who threatens the Nzo rollout. These aren't rumors. These are silent operations. And they've already started. Part 5. Mama Panafrica warns from the spiritual chambers. While the generals moved into defense, a different voice echoed inside the African Union's traditional leadership. Mama Panafrica. She is not a politician. She is a cultural seer, a moral advisor, and the only insider with access to AU elders, first ladies, and the Union's Pan-African Heritage Council. Mama Panafrica has warned quietly that Nzo Energy must not be treated like oil or gold. She said the spiritual symbolism of the elephant, the Nzo, must be respected. Mama Panafrica's circle has been holding closed-door rituals across Mali, Ghana, and Lesotho, claiming that Nzo Energy is not just scientific, it is ancestral. They believe it is a gift, not a weapon. And if misused, it could backfire on the continent. Her warnings are being taken seriously inside the Afrogold Policy Draft Committee, which is now rewriting the AU Energy Charter to include cultural compliance protocols. Part 6. What the AU is planning in secret. According to a second file drop from Protocol Black, titled NZU Framework Internal Only, here is what the African Union is planning right now. 1. Creation of CERA, Continental Energy Resilience Agency, tasked with overseeing ZO energy rollout, run quietly from Addis Ababa, operates under full blackout from foreign embassies. 2. Initial pilot sites, Zimbabwe, powering rural clinics, Ethiopia, backing up Afronet towers, Ghana, silent energy grid test in Takoradi, Namibia, desert heat-proof field tests, Cameroon, mining village electrification. 3. Public rollout date is delayed to after February 2026. To coincide with the official One Africa government launch. 4. Energy will not be sold. It will be shared through internal AU deployment orders only. 5. No patents will be filed internationally. 6. No public comment will be made until the tech is weapon-proofed against Western sabotage. This isn't just a discovery. This is a continental revolution under construction. Hack Part 7. Why the West is already panicking. So why hasn't CNN or BBC reported this? Because they've been ordered not to. According to Chairman Shadow, a confidential advisory was issued across multiple Western media networks, titled Energy Intelligence Brief, Class 5, Delay Coverage Pending Verification. Why? Because NZU Energy doesn't just threaten the oil market. It threatens global energy dominance, the green tech market controlled by the West, the billions made from selling solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries to Africa. The very idea that Africa is dependent, NZU Energy removes the middleman. No pipelines, no ships, no trade deals. Just a mineral vibrating silently under African soil and powering the future. Part 8, Inside the Shadow Unit, Zulu deployment. General Umoja confirmed it. Shadow Unit Zulu has now created a Zulu Zeta team, exclusively assigned to Element X protection. These operatives are fluent in 5 languages, trained in underwater extraction, stationed across ports, borders, and research facilities, running identity-shielded surveillance through AfroNetWet. One source says Zulu Zeta has already stopped 2 sabotage attempts, one in Cameroon by a Western-funded NGO and one in Zambia by an unknown private contractor posing as a geologist. They don't announce arrests. They don't show their faces. Shadow Unit Zulu just appears. And then everything goes quiet. Part 9, Street Reactions Across the Continent. ZO Energy is not even public yet, but the streets are already buzzing. In Dar es Salaam, youth groups are holding underground classes on Africa's new power. In Harare, an artist painted a mural of a glowing black cube rising from the soil, captioned, "The Light Beneath." In Lagos, a comedian went viral saying, "If NEPA don't come to me, then Nenzo will Afrobeat producers are sampling low-frequency hums and calling it Nzo Vibe." TikTok is filled with fake tutorials on how to find Element X in your backyard. Even without AU confirmation, the people believe, and belief is power. Part 10, The Road to 2026. Here's what insiders say is coming next. February 2026, One Africa government goes live. March 2026, first official CERA press release. April 2026, NZU Energy quietly added to AU Energy Charter. Mid-2026, 12 countries go live on NZU mini-grids. Late 2026, Afrogold vaults switch to NZU energy shielding. 2027, Africa becomes first continent not dependent on foreign energy imports. Chairman Shadow says the AU knows what this means. That's why they're moving in silence. No victory dance, no noise, just rollout, quietly, unstoppably.
If you're hearing these words, it's not a coincidence. Something powerful is moving in the invisible.
Part 11, Western Response, Damage Control. Protocol Black's third file dump includes intel that the U.S. Department of Energy has issued a report classifying NZO Energy as a strategic disruptor. The UK is offering AU scholarships hoping to insert science agents. France has created a task force to locate similar minerals in West Africa. Germany's BND intelligence agency is rumored to have tried to tap AfroNet signals and failed. This is not diplomacy. This is digital colonization trying to reload itself. But the AU is locked down. Thanks to Shadow Unit Zulu, CERA, and insiders like General Umoja, Protocol Black, and Mama Pan-Africa, Africa is no longer leaking. Africa is watching. Part 12, Final Word. Supreme family, this is the beginning of the end, not of the world, but of the old world. A world where Africa begged for fuel, where our cities went dark, where we imported batteries from countries that stole our minerals. That world is over. Now, we power ourselves, silently, cleanly, permanently. Ninzu Energy is not just an energy discovery. It is a continental awakening, a reminder that what they took was never just land, it was light. And now, from the belly of the soil, that light is rising again. This is Takunda Mabika reporting for Supreme Africa Breaking News. Stay proud. And always remember, Tisu Van Huvacho, the fire is ours now.
The fire is ours now. Good. Wow. So we're down to the last two. Listen, with the artificial sun, not only to light Africa for eternity, it is a weapon. It is a weapon, you guys, that will incinerate a motherfucker in less than 1 second. Nanosecond, to be honest with you. You see, there are things that are moving in this world that have never moved before. It will move our heart, soul, minds, and spirit and lift it up to the level of our ancestors in order to bring about a better, more just world. You really don't know what is about to happen. You won't be able to fathom it, but you'll be able to benefit from it. And I'm talking about black folks. Fuck white folks. It's not them, it's us. So here we go, the artificial sun and what that means. Well, let me bring that up.
One Africa government announces Africa will build its own artificial sun. Free Energy Forever by Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Van Huvacho, Supreme family. Today we're not talking about candlelight, diesel generators, or load shedding. We're talking about the biggest energy leak in African history. According to AU insiders like Protocol Black and military intercepts from Shadow Unit Zulu, the One Africa government has launched a project to build its own artificial sun. Yes, family, you heard that right. An African-built sun, a star on Earth, a machine that could power this continent forever. They're calling it Project Sun of Africa. And if this leak is real, Africa may have just lit the match that will burn down the global energy order. Part 1, the leak protocol. Black leaked an AU Energy Council memo stamped top secret, continental priority. The memo outlined the creation of a fusion project that would make Africa the first continent to run entirely on clean, unlimited power. The plan was simple on paper, but revolutionary in scale. Build a fusion reactor so powerful it could mimic the reactions of the sun itself. Shadow Unit Zulu confirmed the memo after intercepting NATO cables panicking about unusual energy experiments in Congo and South Africa. One NATO general allegedly scribbled, "If Africa achieves fusion, Western leverage ends." Supreme family, that's not just science, that's sovereignty in glowing plasma. Part 2, Africa's space in the fusion race. Some might ask, but how can Africa build a sun? Here's the answer. Africa has been sitting on the resources the West needs for fusion for decades. Uranium from Niger and Namibia, rare earth magnets from Congo, helium-3 prospects from the solar expertise from Morocco, South Africa, and Kenya. China has already tested its own artificial sun reactor. The West has projects like ITER in France. But insiders say Africa has taken a shortcut, combining raw materials, ancestral foresight, and Afrinet's quantum computing to leapfrog decades of research. According to the memo, AU labs in Congo, South Africa, and Ethiopia have been secretly coordinating experiments since 2019. The project was hidden behind hydropower expansion and nuclear research budgets. Supreme family, while the world laughed at Africa's power cuts, Africa was busy designing a star. Part 3, the step-by-step plan. The leaked document broke Project Sun of Africa into phases. 1. Phase 1. Build massive underground research chambers in Congo powered by Inga Dam hydropower. 2. Phase 2. Use South Africa's advanced labs to design magnetic containment rings made from rare minerals. 3. Phase 3. Ethiopian observatories feed orbital data into AfriNet AI, stabilizing plasma reactions. 4. Phase 4. First ignition test, codenamed Sunrise Protocol, expected before 2026. Each phase is designed not just for science, but for sovereignty. The AU doesn't want outside funding. AfroGold reserves are allegedly backing the entire project. Imagine that, family. A son born not in Paris, not in Washington, but in Kinshasa. Part 4. What the artificial sun means. According to insiders, if the artificial sun works, the results are staggering. Unlimited clean power for every African home. No more rationing, no more generators. Factories running 24/7 without fuel imports. AfroGold energy credits replacing dollar-based oil trade. Free electricity rollouts starting with schools, hospitals, and rural areas. Supreme family, this is bigger than just light bulbs. This is Africa flipping the switch on global energy dominance. Part 5. Scenes from the ground. Insiders painted cinematic scenes. In Congo, scientists walking through underground tunnels glowing with blue plasma chambers. In South Africa, engineers assembling massive magnetic coils with AfroGold emblems engraved on them. In Ethiopia, astronomers typing plasma data into AfriNet-powered computers, the screen showing Earth's first man-made sunrise.
Every man needs a sneaker that keeps up with his pace, and the Stigman was made for that. A modern look for any occasion, guaranteed
In Ghana, a pilot village flicking on lights connected to test reactors, children cheering as power surges through homes for the first time without outages. This isn't just technology. This is prophecy in action. Part 6. NATO panic. Leaked NATO cables show Western panic at full volume. Washington, analysts warned Congress that Africa may leapfrog into fusion before the West. Brussels, EU leaders feared Africa could undermine global oil markets permanently. London, think tanks admitted that if Africa controls fusion, Africa controls the world. One memo even stated, if AfroGold backs fusion, the dollar dies. Supreme family, the same West that mocked Africa's electricity grid, is now crying in classified memos about Africa's star. That's comedy writing itself. Part 7. Western oil collapse. The artificial sun threatens oil, gas, and coal industries. If Africa no longer needs imported fuel, oil giants lose trillions. Leaked reports show Saudi and US oil lobbyists begging for emergency meetings. Wall Street allegedly suffered tremors the day the memo leaked. Imagine oil tankers stuck at sea while African households run on star power. That's the roast of the century. Part 8. African street comedy. On the streets, Africans turned the leak into laughter. Nigerians said, "So NEPA finally retired? Our ancestors must be laughing in heaven." South Africans joked, "Load shedding is finished. Eskom can go on holiday forever." Zimbabweans, "Our bond note's still useless, but at least now we can charge our phones all night." Kenyans, "So if Africa has its own sun, does that mean we get 2 summers?" Comedy, family, is how we process power. Part 9. AfroGold integration. Insiders claim the artificial sun's energy credits will be directly tied to AfroGold. Instead of paying in dollars for electricity, nations will transact in AfroGold tokens. This means AfroGold won't just be a currency, it becomes the universal unit of power. Economists in Washington allegedly called it the end of petrodollar dominance. Supreme family, that's not just economics, that's cosmic revenge. Part 10. AfriNet's role. The artificial sun is allegedly stabilized by AfriNet quantum computing. Unlike Western supercomputers, AfriNet runs on sovereign servers across Africa. This means no foreign hacking, no sabotage, no spying. For once, Africa owns not just the light, but the data behind it. One insider wrote, "The sun itself now runs on AfriNet." Part 11. The emotional punch. Think about it. For centuries, Africa was drained of resources. Uranium, oil, diamonds, gold. Our ancestors dug and dug, while colonizers carried it away. Now their children dig not for colonizers, but for a sun of their own. Imagine the symbolism. From slaves working in mines to scientists building a star. A grandmother in Lagos told Saben, "They once stole our fire. Now we build a fire they cannot touch." Supreme family, that is cosmic justice in action. Pack Part 12. Global reactions. Russia applauding Africa, offering nuclear expertise. China praising Africa's leap, offering tech partnerships. US and EU allegedly considering sanctions to stop fusion destabilization. But here's the roast. The same powers that burned coal for centuries now want to sanction Africa for building clean energy. Hypocrisy glowing brighter than the sun itself. Part 13, Culture and Art. Already, African artists are responding. In Nairobi, murals show a glowing sun rising above AU flags. In Johannesburg, rappers spit bars about two suns, one Africa. In Accra, poets write verses about ancestors lighting a fire under the colonizers' feet. The artificial sun isn't just physics, it's poetry, it's prophecy. The roast leaked AU memo ended with a handwritten note from an engineer. Tell the West we're no longer waiting for daylight savings. We make our own sun. That, family, is the roast of the millennium. Part 15, the future. According to insiders, the AU wants to expand artificial suns across the continent. Plans include one reactor in every region, Afro-Gold energy grids connecting rural Africa, exporting surplus electricity to Europe and Asia. Imagine that. Africa exporting light to Europe. Colonizers once dragged our people into darkness. Now we sell them daylight. Part 16, the final emotional punch. Picture this. An African child in a rural village switching on a lamp without fear of blackout. A grandmother in Harare cooking sadza all night without worrying about fuel. A city skyline in Lagos glowing from an African-built sun. Supreme family. This isn't science fiction. This is prophecy fulfilled. Part 17, call to action. So, Supreme family, what do you think? Should Africa unleash the artificial sun on the world immediately, or keep it secret until Afro-Gold is ready? Should we share it with allies, or guard it like ancestors guarded their treasures? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash subscribe. Share this video with the world. Tisu Vanhu Bacho. Africa is not waiting for the sunrise. Africa has built one.
All right, we're coming down to the last one. I'm going to add one more. I thought I had included in it, but I didn't. So let me take a look at that right now. Oh, let me get rid of these. Cool. Okay, so let me take a look at that. AU on the move. Give me a minute. I'll be right back with you. You know what? I might have to wait till Tuesday if I don't see it, right? No, I don't see it. It's not coming up as AU on the moon. Let's see. I'll try this. It'll be like African Union bill based on the moon. Oh, okay, here we go. Hold on. Oh. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the next to the last one that I was on. And we'll do that one first, and then we'll do the last one. Okay. Okay, so hold on. And we will be right back.
The rules were secretly written against you from the very start, before you were even allowed to sit at the table. For the first 250 rounds, you're not a player. You can't roll the dice. You can't pass go. You can't own property. In fact, you are property. You are a game piece, a pawn belonging to another player, and your only purpose is to make them rich, building their empire, hotels, and railroads on your back. Then, for the next 100 rounds, you're finally handed a token and allowed to play, but the rule book is still rigged. You're banned from buying property on Boardwalk and Park Place, the best neighborhoods. The bank, which is run by the other players, won't give you loans to build houses. And anytime you manage to build a little momentum, string a few properties together, the other players can invoke special, unwritten rules that apply only to you. They can send you directly to jail, confiscate your properties, and force you to start all over again with nothing. How can you win that game? You can't. It's not a game of chance or skill. It's fixed. This isn't a game. This is a story of how America built its black poverty machine. This wasn't a bug in the system, an unfortunate glitch. It was the system itself. This wasn't a series of unlucky breaks or personal failures, but the careful, deliberate construction of a powerful economic engine designed over centuries with massive, interlocking gears of policy, violence, and exclusion, all meticulously calibrated for one specific output: a racial wealth gap, so vast it's hard to wrap your head around. Today, the median net worth of a white family in America is staggering compared to a black family's. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent data from 2022, the typical white household held $285,000 in wealth. The typical black household, just $44,900. That's a gap of over $240,000. It's like one player has a stack of cash and a board full of hotels, while the other has a few crumpled bills. For every dollar wealth a white family has, a black family is just under 16 cents. This isn't the result of a few bad decades. It is a calculated end product of a machine that's been running for 400 years. To understand poverty in black America today, we have to stop looking for faults in the player and start looking at the blueprints of the game itself. Every machine needs a power source. America's economic machine, in its early days, was powered by the brutal efficiency of chattel slavery. For 246 years, black people weren't just shut out of the economic game. They were the game's fuel. They were the capital, the living assets in ledger books, the human collateral for loans. They were the engine of fortunes built on cotton, tobacco, and sugar. By 1860, the monetary value of the 4 million enslaved people in the U.S. was worth more than all the nation's factories, railroads, and banks combined. It was the single largest financial asset in the entire American economy. This system didn't just deny black people wages for their work. It was an economic black hole, systematically extracting the value of their labor, their families, and their futures to create immense wealth for others. The starting whistle blew, but one group was chained to the starting block, forced to carry the other runners on their shoulders down the track. Then came the Civil War and a promise: emancipation. For a brief, flickering moment during Reconstruction, it seemed like the machine might be dismantled. The most famous promise of this era was 40 acres and a mule. In 1865, General William T. Sherman Special Field Order Number 15 set aside 400,000 acres of coastal land for the exclusive settlement of formerly enslaved families. This wasn't a handout. It was a player's long overdue starting capital. It was a vision for economic justice, an acknowledgement that after centuries of unpaid labor, you couldn't just say you're free and expect a fair outcome. Land ownership was the primary foundation of American wealth. Granting this land would have given black families the one thing they needed most: an asset, a starting point to finally play the game. The promise was shattered in less than a year. After Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson, a sympathizer to the Southern planter class, acted like a casino boss, changing the rules mid-hand. He overturned Sherman's order and returned the land to former Confederates. The 40,000 or so freedmen who had started new lives were evicted. often by the very men who had once enslaved them. The dream of 40 acres and a mule died, and with it, the most significant chance Black America had for an economic foothold. This betrayal was compounded by another disaster, the collapse of Freedmen's Savings Bank. Chartered in 1865, the bank was meant to be a secure vault for the first generation of Black savers. Tens of thousands of Black individuals and organizations, with incredible faith, entrusted their life savings to it. But the bank's white trustees ran it like their own private slush fund, engaging in rampant mismanagement and fraud. When it failed in 1874, it was like the game's official banker had simply stolen all of one player's money. The entire accumulated capital of a generation was wiped out, the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars today. The failure bred a deep, justifiable mistrust of financial institutions that would echo for generations. With the door to land ownership slammed shut and their savings vaporized, most Black people in the South had no choice but to return to the plantations. This gave rise to sharecropping, a new gear in the poverty machine that was like slavery with extra steps. White landowners would lease land to a Black family for a huge shared crop, often 50% or more. The landowner also controlled the company's store, selling seeds and food on credit at insane interest rates. It was like being forced to run on a treadmill. You were always working, always sweating, but you never moved an inch forward. At the end of the year, the sharecropper almost always ended up with nothing, or worse, deeper in debt. It was a closed loop of debt peonage, perfectly designed to ensure a permanent, cheap labor force. The machine was now fully recalibrated for a post-slavery world. As America entered the 20th century, the Black poverty machine was about to get a series of powerful, nationwide upgrades. These weren't just local customs anymore. These were federal policies and institutionalized practices that would systematically block Black wealth creation on a national scale. First, there was the brutal operating system of the South. Jim Crow. This was more than separate water fountains. It was a comprehensive system of economic terror, like a malicious software code running in the background of society. It was a web of laws and violent customs that locked Black people out of skilled jobs, confining them to menial labor. The unwritten rule was last hired, first fired. Any Black person who achieved a bit of economic success, a thriving business, productive land, was seen as a threat and became a target. The massacres in places like Wilmington in 1898 and Tulsa in 1921 weren't random riots. They were acts of economic ethnic cleansing, like a furious player flipping the entire game board over because you were starting to win. Prosperous Black Wall Streets were burned to the ground, their accumulated wealth destroyed, sending a chilling message. Black success will be met with violence. When the Great Depression hit, it was a catastrophe for everyone, but an apocalypse for Black America. While the national unemployment rate hit 25%, for Black Americans, it was 50% or higher. In came FDR's New Deal, a lifeline for many Americans that helped build the modern middle class. But for Black Americans, it was often a raw deal. To pass his legislation, FDR needed the votes of powerful Southern segregationists, and he consistently sacrificed Black interests to get them. As a result, most New Deal programs were built with discriminatory loopholes. The Agricultural Adjustment Act sent relief checks to white landowners who were supposed to share them with their Black sharecroppers. They rarely did, instead evicting over 100,000 Black families. The Social Security Act of 1935, the bedrock of our social safety net, was like weaving a massive safety net, but deliberately cutting a giant hole in it. It explicitly excluded agricultural and domestic workers, the two sectors where over 60% of Black Americans worked. This single decision denied millions access to unemployment insurance and old age pensions, benefits that became a foundation of economic security for white families. Of all the 20th century gears, none was more powerful than the one that denied access to homeownership, the single greatest engine for building wealth for the average American family. In the 1930s, the federal government got into the business of making homeownership accessible, but it did so by deliberately excluding Black people. This was the birth of redlining. The government became a national real estate appraiser, creating color-coded maps of every city. Neighborhoods were graded through D. Green A neighborhoods were deemed lowest risk, are almost exclusively new, all-white suburbs. Red D neighborhoods were labeled hazardous. The government's own manuals were shockingly explicit. The presence of even one black family was enough to downgrade a neighborhood to red. The Federal Housing Administration, FHA, would then refuse to insure mortgages in these red-line communities. No insurance meant no bank loans. This policy starved black communities of capital, making it nearly impossible to buy a home or even get a loan to fix a leaky roof. At the exact same time, the FHA was using taxpayer money to subsidize the construction of massive new suburbs like Levittown on the explicit condition that the homes be sold only to white people. The government was acting as an architect of inequality, simultaneously building the white middle class while drawing a red line around black communities, trapping them in declining urban centers and cutting them off from the most important path to wealth. The long-term effects are still with us. Studies show homeowners in formerly red-line neighborhoods have gained significantly less in home equity than those in non-red-line areas. After World War II, the GI Bill was a jackpot of opportunity, rewarding returning veterans with college tuition, low-interest home loans, and business loans. It's credited with creating the modern American middle class, a middle class that was, by design, overwhelmingly white. Over 1.2 million black soldiers served honorably, yet they were systematically denied these benefits. The law was administered locally, often by an all-white Veterans Administration. It was like a national lottery where black veterans were told their tickets were valid, but the prize booths in their neighborhoods were always mysteriously closed. In the Jim Crow South, and in many parts of the North, their applications were denied. The home loans were useless because of redlining. Black veterans who wanted to go to college found that the few historically black colleges were overwhelmed, and white universities wouldn't admit them. Of the first 67,000 mortgages insured by the GI Bill in the New York suburbs, fewer than 100 were for non-white veterans. The GI Bill became another devastating missed opportunity, widening the very wealth gap it could have helped close. By the late 1960s, the civil rights movement made legal exclusion harder. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 outlawed redlining, but the machine didn't break down. It adapted. Its programming was updated from blunt force to surgical precision. It shifted from total exclusion to a more insidious strategy, predatory inclusion. Now that it was illegal to refuse to lend, speculators moved in. This was like a mousetrap baited with the cheese of opportunity. Instead of being denied credit, black families were targeted for the most exploitative loans imaginable. In cities like Chicago, families unable to get a traditional mortgage were offered contracts for houses at inflated prices. They made payments but built no equity, like tenants. If they missed one payment, the trap would spring. They could be evicted, losing everything. This predatory model hit its peak in the run-up to the 2008 financial crisis. Loan officers specifically targeted black and Latino neighborhoods with toxic subprime mortgages, knowing they were financial time bombs. Studies found that high-income black borrowers were twice as likely to receive a subprime loan as low-income white borrowers. It was reverse redlining. When the market crashed, a wave of foreclosures disproportionately wiped out black wealth, in what became the single largest destruction of wealth for communities of color in modern history. The machine had been perfected. For 100 years, it worked by locking black people out. Now, it had been upgraded to work by letting them in, but only on terms designed to strip away their wealth. After centuries of design and upgrades, the machine is running at peak efficiency. Its output is all around us, in the stark numbers that define American life. These aren't just statistics. They are the unavoidable end product of a system built by design. The clearest measure of the machine's success is the racial wealth gap. Wealth is an income. It's what you own minus what you owe. It's your family's economic immune system. It's the safety net that protects you from emergency and the foundation for opportunity. As of 2022, the typical white household has a net worth of $285,000. The typical black household has just $44,900. That's not a gap, it's a canyon. It's the difference between having a fully stocked emergency bunker for a hurricane versus a leaky umbrella. That gap is a direct legacy of policies that promoted white wealth while destroying black wealth. In fact, Even though black wealth grew between 2019 and 2022, the dollar gap between white and black households actually increased by nearly $50,000. The main driver of the wealth gap is a gap in homeownership. In 2023, the homeownership rate for white Americans was over 72%, while for black Americans, it was just under 45%. Shockingly, that gap is about as wide today as it was in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act was passed. It's like we've been in a 50-year race toward equality, but one runner has unknowingly been on a moving walkway going backward. This is a direct result of redlining and discriminatory loan practices that persist today. Even in 2023, black mortgage applicants were denied loans at nearly double the rate of white applicants. What about education? The data shows it's not the great equalizer we think it is. In 2023, the median income for a white household was about $84,600. For a black household, it was just over $56,400, meaning black households earn only about 67 cents for every dollar earned by white households. A black college graduate is like a climber on the corporate ladder who is forced to wear a weighted vest. They have to work twice as hard just to keep up with their white counterparts. And the old last hired, first fired rule is still grimly intact. During recessions, black unemployment consistently spikes to double the rate of white unemployment. The machine doesn't just block wealth. It actively imposes debt. This is clearest with student loans. Because black families have less generational wealth to pay for college, black students are forced to take on far more debt. It's a financial anchor they have to drag with them from day one. They start their careers not at the starting line, but 100 yards behind it, trying to catch up while shackled by debt, making it exponentially harder to save, buy a home, and build wealth. What about starting a business? Here, too, the machine erects barriers. The biggest hurdle is capital. Black business owners are denied credit at nearly twice the rate of white owners. Imagine trying to grow a garden. One study found the average black-owned startup received just $500 in outside investor funding, barely enough for a few seeds. The average white-owned startup received $18,500, enough for seeds, soil, and fertilizer. This is a direct consequence of the wealth gap. Most entrepreneurs rely on personal and family wealth to get started, a resource that is far less available in the black community. We've traced the blueprints, examined the gears, and measured the output, from the slavery-era engine that used humans as fuel to the sabotage of Reconstruction that stole the starter capital. From Jim Crow's economic warfare to a New Deal that wove a safety net full of holes. From the red lines that segregated the country to a GI Bill that handed a jackpot of opportunity to white veterans while shutting black veterans out. And finally, to the modern gears of predatory lending that turned the dream of ownership into a nightmare of debt. Each of these was a conscious choice, a policy enacted, a law enforced, a system built. The result is a machine we see today, humming along, producing the same racial disparities year after year. To argue that these gaps are the result of personal choices or a lack of ambition is a profound misreading of history. It's blaming the player for losing a game that was rigged from the start. It asks us to ignore the blueprints, to pretend the machine doesn't exist. So where does that leave us? Acknowledging the machine isn't about assigning guilt. It's about demanding an accurate diagnosis of the problem so we can find real solutions. It will require policies as bold and intentional as the ones that built the machine in the first place. But the first step is understanding that what we see today is not an accident. It is a product of meticulous, centuries-long design. We can't dismantle an engine we refuse to see. We have to see the machine for what it is, study its mechanics, and call it by its name. And now, after walking to the gears of this machine, I want to leave you with one question. What do we do next? If the poverty machine was carefully built, then it can also be carefully dismantled. But only if we recognize it, challenge it, and refuse to let history repeat itself. The conversation doesn't end here. It begins with you. Do you believe America can ever truly break this cycle? Or has the machine simply been upgraded for a new era? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one. If this story opened your eyes, hit that like button, share this video, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. From my heart, Thank you for being part of this family. Your support means everything. Together, we are not just watching history, we are rewriting the narrative.
All right, you heard it. And that should give you some pause, but also give you enough ammunition to do something about it. And that is why it's so important to know history and what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. Hold on. Let me try to do this one. Oh, okay. All right. Hold on.
What if I told you there's a machine, a vast economic engine, assembled over a century with one primary function, to systematically block you from building wealth, all based on the color of your skin? This isn't a dystopian fantasy.
Okay, so here we are at the last video, and then I'm gonna let it run for 10 minutes, and then I'll be back to give my closing comment, and we'll be done for the night. All right, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen, and we are off and running. I'll be back in 10. Hold on.
Breaking. One Africa Army builds first military base on the moon. Project Space Kings. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme After Breaking News. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Supreme Family. What if I told you that while some powers are still fighting over oil, borders, and old resources, Africa has allegedly leaped ahead and planted its own footprint on the moon? That's the fire leaking into our newsroom today. According to AU insiders like Protocol Black and military watchers from Shadow Unit Zulu, the One Africa Army has quietly built the first African military base on the moon. The project is codenamed Project Space Kings, a secret operation that insiders claim has been underway for years. If true, this changes everything. For centuries, colonizers looked down on Africa. Now Africa is literally looking down on Earth from space. Nash Part 1, The Leak.
¿Me puedes dar uno?
500 pesos.
500 pesos. ¿Acaso quieres todo el inventario? No, solo quiero uno. Ahora
The story begins with a leaked AU Space Command memo stamped top secret, for continental eyes only. Protocol Black slipped it to Sabien, and Shadow Unit Zulu later intercepted NATO cables confirming unusual rocket launches from African soil. The memo described something breathtaking: the first African lunar outpost, designed not only as a research station, but also as a forward base for the One Africa Army. Western analysts in those intercepted NATO cables allegedly called it the first non-Western military installation on the moon. Supreme Family. The West thought Africa couldn't even manage Wi-Fi stability. Now insiders say Africa is controlling orbital assets and dropping bases on lunar soil. That's the kind of plot twist that belongs in history books. Part 2, Africa's space routes. To make this real, we must understand Africa has not been sleeping. South Africa's SANZA has been managing satellites and deep space tracking stations since the apartheid days. Nigeria has launched multiple satellites, controlling data from Abuja. Egypt has one of the oldest space programs on the continent, with experience in satellite imaging. Ethiopia built a space observatory on a mountain ridge near Addis Ababa. According to leaks, these agencies quietly merged under the African Union into a single body called AU Space Command. This became the engine of Project Space Kings. So while the world was laughing at Africa, our scientists were quietly putting together pieces for a cosmic empire. Part 3, how it began. The project allegedly started with Afrinet satellites. First, AU launched secure communication networks into orbit. Then came classified heavy rockets, launched from upgraded pads in Namibia and Kenya. The memo described a sequence. Phase 1, Launch of AFRINET satellite constellations to provide communication backbone. 2. Phase 2. Construction of modular base components in African factories. 3. Phase 3. Launch of unmanned rockets carrying those modules to the moon. 4. Phase 4. Deployment of AU astronauts to assemble the first lunar outpost. By 2025, insiders claim the first African crew touched down on the moon and began bolting together the base. Supreme Family. While the world was watching Elon Musk's tweets, Africa was quietly building a throne in space. Part 4, Inside Project Space Kings. The lunar base itself is described as modular, futuristic, and uniquely African. Domes, inflatable structures covered with lunar dust to shield against radiation. Power, solar fields spreading across the lunar surface, with energy stored in African-built batteries. Command, AFRINET quantum links ensure secure communication with Earth, independent of US GPS. Mining units, robots already drilling for helium-3 and rare minerals. Military role, housing for the first lunar defense unit of the One Africa Army. One insider scribbled in the memo, "This is not just a base, this is Africa's throne in space." Part 5, the symbolism. Why is this called Space Kings? Because the AU allegedly sees it as the completion of liberation. Colonizers once enslaved Africans to dig for gold and diamonds in brutal mines. Now their descendants are mining space, not for colonizers, but for Africa. It's poetic. From being dragged in chains on ships to standing proudly on the moon. That's why insiders say the base is decorated with murals of African kings and queens etched into the walls. Imagine looking out from the moon's surface, seeing Earth in the distance, while standing next to a carved figure of Shaka Zulu or Mansa Musa. That's science fiction. That's dignity made physical. Part 6, NATO panic. The leaks say NATO is in full panic. Shadow Unit Zulu intercepted a cable where generals complained, "Africa has moved faster than our projections. This base undermines Western dominance in space." In Washington, Congress reportedly debated emergency space security bills. In Brussels, EU officials allegedly warned of African lunar militarization. One memo even read, "If Africa controls helium-3, it controls the future of fusion energy." Supreme Family. The West used to joke about African nations struggling with power cuts. Now they're terrified Africa may control the energy of the future, mined from the moon. Part 7, global fallout. China, quietly clapping, offering technology partnerships. Russia, allegedly offered to send cosmonauts to collaborate. US and EU, panicking, accusing AU of secrecy and militarization. But here's the irony. When America built a base in Germany or Japan, they called it security. When Africa builds a base on the moon, they call it provocation. That double standard, Supreme Family, is comedy on its own. The Part 8. African streets, as always, turned the story into pure comedy gold. Nigerians joked, "So even our Okadas are going to the moon now?" South Africans, "At least load shedding won't reach lunar bases." Zimbabweans, "Our bond notes can't reach orbit, but our soldiers did." Kenyans, "If they build a lunar matatu, it better not overcharge for oxygen." Comedy is our secret weapon. It turns leaks into laughter and laughter into pride. Part 9. The Afro-Gold Factor. The AU memo suggested lunar helium-3 and rare minerals will be channeled into Afro-Gold reserves. Imagine that. Afro-Gold, already backed by Africa's gold and diamonds, now supported by moon minerals. Economists in the West allegedly warned this would make Afro-Gold unstoppable. Supreme Family. Imagine paying for your groceries with a currency backed not just by African gold, but by extraterrestrial diamonds. That's the kind of economics that keeps Wall Street awake at night. Part 10, the AFRINET factor. The moon base allegedly runs entirely on AFRINET quantum links. This means NATO cannot hack or jam its systems. Even if the West tries, AFRINET cloaks the data like shadows. For decades, Africa was spied on. Now Africa is the one securing the signals from Earth to the moon. Part 11, scenes of the base insiders described visuals that sound cinematic. AU astronauts planting the AU flag next to a silver dome. Shadow Unit Zulu soldiers in lunar suits guarding mining bots. Earth glowing behind African-built habitats. A plaque reading, "The sky was never the limit, it was the starting point." Supreme Family. Imagine the pride of seeing our flag flutter on lunar dust. That's Africa's dignity flying higher than ever. Part 12, Culture and murals. African artists are already responding. Murals in Lagos show AU astronauts holding drums on the moon. In Johannesburg, graffiti depicts Shaka Zulu riding a lunar rover. In Nairobi, poets write verses about ancestors looking up at the stars and smiling. This space is not just about science, it's about culture. It's about art. It's about reclaiming the future. Part 13, Emotional Punch. Think about it. For centuries, colonizers used ships to enslave Africans. Now their descendants used rockets to empower themselves. From chains on Earth to freedom in space. That's the arc of prophecy. A grandmother in Ghana told SBN, "Our children were taken away on ships. Now their children have returned to the heavens. The ancestors are at peace. Supreme family, this is bigger than geopolitics. This is cosmic justice."
Yes,
Part
it is.
14, the roast leaked AU memo ended with a handwritten note from an engineer. Tell Elon Musk will rent him a room in Space Kings if he pays in Afro gold. That, family, is the roast of the century. Part 15, the future insiders say this is just the beginning. The AU plans to expand Space Kings into a full city by 2030. Proposals include lunar farms powered by solar, African universities offering space engineering courses, tourism packages for Africans to visit the base one day. The dream is to make the moon not just a military base, but a new frontier for African civilization. Part 16, call to action. So, Supreme family, what do you think? Should Africa expand Space Kings quickly or keep it secret? Should Afro Gold include moon minerals now or wait until launch is official? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash subscribe. Share this video across continents. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Africa is not begging for a seat at the table. Africa is building the table, this time on the moon.
It is over, guys. It is over for white folks. They're so fucking dumb. They don't even know what's hitting them right now. But it's beyond their wildest. People can do this. And that's where they fuck. So we're going to wrap it up and go into the final comment. It's really simple. Come together, my people. Black first, second, third, and last, and forever. Amen. It is very, 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 very important to stay united, because if we don't, then our ancestors will stop blessing us. It really is that simple. The more united we are, the more successful we'll be, and we cannot be beaten when we are united. If we are divided, we'll stay in the same shithole. That's it. And so for the next 24/7, 365, stay blessed.